Dr. Pulaski is stricken with a mysterious disease on the next exciting episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Hey, it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another episode of Treknalysis. A deadly aging virus wreaks havoc on those it meets, Dr. Pulaski interrupts Picard, and Picard's just about ready to pull his hair out. This is Unnatural Selection.
Haven't got much time.
Dr. Pulaski. You either love her or count the episodes until Dr. Crusher returns. But even though she butts heads with the crew and didn't exactly make the best first impression...
Data, look at this. It does know how to do these things, doesn't it? Your artificial friend doesn't have a prayer of solving a Holmes mystery that he hasn't read.
The Enterprise's one-season Doctor arguably experiences the most character development out of all the characters on Star Trek: The Next Generation. And she only had one season to do it. And she experiences a lot of character development in the episode Unnatural Selection, where, good gravy, woman, you aged 80 years! Geez, where have I seen that before?
I don't know what's causing it. Virus, bacteria, or evil spirits. But I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, TNG, especially in the early seasons, occasionally recycled plots or tropes from the original series. And not always for the better. But that being said, rapid aging does come up throughout Star Trek every so often, and while Unnatural Selection is recognizable by its rapid aging trope, it's a solid Pulaski episode. Alright, youngin', settle down whilst I tell you the tale of an old tired Pulaski and her battle with time.
And her time is running out. On Star Trek: The Next Generation.
But before I go further, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk a lot about Star Trek, video games, and whatever else I feel like talking about. And if you'd like to help support the channel, consider becoming a member. Be great to have you aboard. It's 6 episodes into Season 2, Dr. Pulaski is CMO, and Picard has had enough.
How would you evaluate her as a chief medical officer?
Jeez, Jean-Luc, getting Troy to back you up? What, are you afraid to tell off your CMO yourself, or just the non-redheaded ones?
Beverly, the Prime Directive is not just a set of rules.
Suffice to say, in the short time Pulaski's been on board, Picard hasn't quite adjusted to his new CMO. Of course, that's a little hard to do when the first time you see her, it's in the bar while she's on the clock. The 10-forward doctor, ladies and gents! Troy, however, doesn't back up Picard because Pulaski's dedicated and passionate about her work.
Is it possible that such consuming dedication could interfere with her judgment?
Man, he's really looking for an excuse to fire her. Meanwhile, the Enterprise picked up a distress signal, and since the ship isn't responding anymore, they're off to check it out.
Looks like they had a battle with time. And lost.
This is the USS Lantree. The ship itself is in working order, but the entire crew is deceased, having died of old age and natural causes.
Captain Talaka was my age, sir.
Wow, you look good for your age, Riker. The crew was also perfectly healthy before, and the only unusual thing that happened recently was the first officer contracted an exotic but fairly harmless flu when they stopped off at the Darwin Genetic Research Station. Something's definitely up, so the Enterprise puts a quarantine on the Lantree and heads over to Darwin Station to warn them. And it looks like they already know.
I celebrated my 35th birthday a week ago.
Gee, must have been a rough 35 years.
Behold, the ravages of age.
Dr. Kingsley here is a doctor on Darwin Station, and she's been working on human genetic research. You know, because that's always a good idea.
I have 5 times your strength.
Also, just want to point out that Star Trek site Memory Alpha pointed out that DS9 established that the Federation outlawed this kind of thing a long time ago, so... You guys are under arrest? Or not? Like with the Lantree, Darwin Station is also infected by rapid old age. And not once does anyone suggest looking up the deadly years in the databanks for a cure. However, the genetically enhanced children on the station don't have any symptoms in isolation, so Dr. Kingsley insists they be evacuated. Except they can't because they're now under quarantine.
Dr. Kingsley sincerely believes the children are not a threat, but she's not telling us the whole truth.
I'll give you half a point for that, Deanna. That was mildly helpful, though it it'd be great to know exactly what she was hiding from us.
He is hiding something.
Worf suggests they avoid contact altogether since this is clearly contagious, and Riker, in an unusual turn of events, agrees. Pulaski, however, denies Worf's suggestion. She wants to bring one of the kids on board for an exam to determine if they really aren't contagious. Picard rightfully agrees with Troy that they should exercise caution since they only have Dr. Kingsley's word, and Deanna's half-assed empathic skills. But Katie, quite contrary Pulaski, suggests they beam one of the kids on board in stasis encased in styrolite, basically a bubble, and put him behind a force field so she can start collecting data. And to be fair, she does have a point. They won't know what they're dealing with and eventually come up with a cure until they start collecting data. And Picard even agrees to it, while Worf rolls his eyes. Denied again, Mr. Worf. Denied again. So Dr. Kingsley sends over a 12-year-old boy to the Enterprise. And he's pushing 20! He's even got the beginnings of a receding hairline here. What, is it kids eat free on Tuesdays on the Enterprise? Say you're 12, say you're 12! And as it turns out, Junior is telepathic, already giving Troy some competition, and has an immune system so advanced he probably can't even contract the disease. So naturally, Pulaski wants to take him out of the box.
But what if you're wrong?
I know I'm right.
Okay, but how? Yeah, you scanned the kid and he has a fancy immune system, but you don't know what kind of crazy things that immune system will do. Heck, why aren't you talking to Dr. Kingsley right now about this? I know she's hiding something, but she's still one of the top experts on this kid. Even having her explain how this advanced immune system works would help determine if it's truly safe to take him out of stasis. As it is right now, Picard is rightfully not convinced that it's safe.
Force fields can fail, and
We
until...
don't have that kind of time.
This is no time to argue about time. We don't have the time.
Pulaski insists the risk is minimal, which is probably something that Dr. Kingsley would argue as well, but look how well she's doing. But Picard doesn't budge. He needs proof that Junior isn't going to turn the Enterprise into Starfleet's retirement home.
But I would appreciate it if you'd let me finish my sentences once in a while.
I don't seem to be dealing with him very well.
Pulaski asks Troy for advice about Picard, and Troy does make an interesting observation. Both of them have well-established personalities, and perhaps they're not so different after all.
You and I are not so different.
And this is actually a good point. Both Picard and Pulaski are opinionated and determined to stand their ground to do the right thing. Both good qualities. But in some ways, they're probably too similar. When you have two opinionated people who won't budge in a discussion, you get conflict. And that is something I appreciate about Pulaski over Beverly. She's more willing to go against Picard than the other characters, even if she's a bit brusque at times. Well, it's time to break the bad news to Kingsley.
Until we absolutely know the cause of the disease, the children
are harmless.
But I would appreciate it if you'd let me finish my sentences once in a while.
Obviously, Kingsley demands they save the children. Every test on them has been negative. So wait, the kids theoretically aren't in danger if they're not contracting the disease, right? So why take them off the station? Shouldn't their goal be to cure the adults before they turn into the Golden Girls? Heck, worst case scenario and they don't find a cure in time, the Enterprise could send down supplies to the kids so they don't starve. Heck, leave Data with them to do anything that needs an adult. They're wasting time talking about evacuation when they could be developing a cure. And even if the key to immunity lies with the kids, have Dr. Kingsley run tests herself and communicate the results to Pulaski. I know, we wouldn't have an episode otherwise, but I feel like there are so many better ways to handle this situation that they're not even considering. With some quick thinking from Geordi, Pulaski goes to Picard to request a shuttlecraft so she can take Junior out of the packaging without endangering the ship. She's putting her money where her mouth is, and it's the only way to prove the kids are harmless. But Picard's still not completely buying it.
You don't have to quote the rule book.
Request approved.
Whoa, I wasn't expecting that, Jean-Luc. After all, you two have been at each other's throats since the start of the... Wait a minute! Is Picard trying to get rid of Pulaski? Permanently? Deanna? Help?
Somebody nearby thinking of murder.
Heck, even Data thinks this whole thing is a little fishy.
You are certainly Captain Approved this, Doctor.
Good luck, Doctor.
You're gonna need it. Pulaski takes Data with her, and while these two had a rocky start, Data expresses concern for Pulaski. Sure, she's a little dismissive of Data, he's a machine, he'll be safe, but he emphasizes his concern about her safety. You can even see her tone change afterwards. She speaks a little softer to Data. For the way she's treated Data up to this point in the show, there was some growth here. I'm proud of you, Kate. And with Junior on board, Pulaski takes him out of the packaging and he communicates telepathically.
I understand you perfectly.
You have a blanket or something? I'm chilly. And for 18 minutes, things are going pretty well. Until arthritis. So, Junior's a carrier. And now Pulaski's infected and feeling the effects of age.
Tell us what you need, Doctor.
Well, some Werther's originals might be nice. Maybe put Matlock on the TV for me.
Matlock! So Pulaski and Data head over to Darwin Station. What, it's not like they're gonna contract it for a second time. So Kate, was it worth it?
Not as much as if you'd kept them in the original packaging.
So now Picard's top priority is to get Pulaski and Data back on board safely, and Troy has a brilliant idea. Let's beam the sickies back on board.
And surely the biofilter.
Well, the transporter's biofilter won't.
What's with everyone cutting everyone off mid-sentence in this episode?
Force fields can fail, and until...
We don't have that kind of time. Until we absolutely know the cause of the disease, the children
Children are harmless.
With quarantine
You don't have to quote the rule book.
Geordi and Chief O'Brien, who actually got his name in this episode, suggest using an archived record of Pulaski's transporter pattern to weed out all the old parts out of her DNA, except there's one problem. She's never used the transporter on the Enterprise. In fact, she hates it. So Picard decides to contact her old captain to get a copy of her transporter pattern, except it's already been deleted. But her old captain speaks so highly of her. Heck, he would have given her a shuttlecraft so she would stay.
If she served you as well as you say, why did you let her go?
Still at it, eh, Jean-Luc? It turns out that as soon as Pulaski found out Beverly was leaving the Enterprise, she applied for the job. Apparently, she's a bit of a Picard fangirl.
Apparently, she's been an admirer of yours for some time.
Extraordinary.
Meanwhile,
I still can't believe you were infected by one of our children.
Really, lady? Really? But the kids are so perfect. They're telepathic. They're telekinetic. They've been designed to resist disease.
I think it's time we talked about that.
Why didn't you earlier? There's seriously nothing here that Dr. Kingsley couldn't have told her at the start of the episode. You literally could have avoided this entire thing. As it turns out, not only are the kids designed to resist disease, their immune system is so aggressive that it attacks the disease while it's airborne by completely altering its DNA structure and, uh-oh.
The antibody created an unexpected side effect.
Oh, great. So, those antibodies created by the kids' immune systems kept going and started altering regular human DNA, which caused everyone to age rapidly. Also, it's highly contagious and irreversible. You see why messing with genetics is a bad idea, Doc? Meanwhile,
can you speak up, Captain?
Having heard Pulaski's findings, Picard says they'll beam her out in suspended animation so they can buy her some time, but she won't violate the quarantine.
I got into this by leaping before I looked, and I won't allow you to make the same mistake.
Pulaski accepts her fate, recognizing that by attempting to control evolution, they created a new deadly species. The children have to live in isolation for the rest of their lives, and Darwin Station, ironically named, will have to remain under quarantine indefinitely.
You did everything you could, Commander.
Wait, Estelle Getty?
Picture it. Sicily, 1912.
Data comes back on board, because he's actually immune to the disease since he's an android. So Picard gets the idea to scrounge around for a bit of Pulaski's DNA. A blood sample, a fingernail, even hair. It's literally turning into an episode of Seinfeld.
There's no hair in this thing. Never seen a person that didn't have at least one hair in a brush.
A panty raid? Really, Riker? I'm surprised at you. Riker and Data come away with Pulaski's hairbrush with a fresh hair to use as a filter. It's a bit risky and never been attempted before. Not to mention it involves someone with a certain fear of transporters. Picard mans the transporter controls himself to bring the good doctor back on board as her old self. Oof, bad choice of words. Whoa! Picard actually hugged someone? That never happens! I mean, he hugged his brother once, but still, whoa! Pulaski and the rest of Darwin Station are cured via transporter, and the researchers will continue their work until they can be reunited with their genetically enhanced children. As the Lantree is destroyed to prevent spread of the disease, Pulaski makes note in her medical log about their sacrifice.
Their sacrifice is thus noted in this scientist's log.
And that was Unnatural Selection. While you could argue it's basically TNG does the deadly years, it's a pretty good character episode for Dr. Pulaski. Heck, it's probably the only Pulaski-centric episode of the series. Unless you count Elementary Dear Data, but I consider that more of a Data episode. It took years, but I eventually reached the point where I kinda prefer Pulaski over Beverly. Don't get me wrong, I still like Beverly. Even if she did date her 100-year-old grandmother's candle ghost boyfriend, you're never living that one down, Bev! But Pulaski was a serious doctor who was willing to give pushback to Picard, granted within protocol. And she was even willing to put her life on the line for what she believed in.
Is it possible that such consuming dedication could interfere with her judgment?
Yes, Pulaski does have her flaws, and her arrogance during this episode nearly cost her her life. But she also accepted the risk for herself, even to the point where she was going to stay on the station and die to keep the Enterprise safe from a highly contagious, deadly disease. And I think throughout the episode, both Picard and Pulaski come to understand each other a little more. Picard appreciating Pulaski's drive to save lives, and Pulaski the importance of keeping the Enterprise safe. While Dr. Crusher may have been a better fit with the crew, Dr. Pulaski was the more interesting character, if only for the amount of growth she does in the one season she was in. Sure, we see her move beyond seeing Data as an android throughout the season, and this episode does have a little bit of that as well, but she gains a sense of humility in this episode that carries over to the rest of the season.
If I live through this, I'll have a much better understanding of geriatrics.
So, what did you think of Unnatural Selection? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you grow to appreciate Pulaski after this episode? Did it take a little more time, or did you never grow to like her and long for Season 3 to bring Dr. Crusher back? And what are some of your favorite Doctor moments in Star Trek? Please, leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Treknalysis. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time,
thank you for